Welcome to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. This show's about Plymouth County real estate. Our headline for the month was Encouraging Signs for Real Estate Market Despite Leveling Off of Sales. We have three segments to the show. The first, I'm going to report on the numbers for the month of May. I have a great guest in the second segment of the show, Attorney Steve Triffletti of Triffletti and Costa, who will be talking about the role of a conveyancing attorney. In the last segment of the show, we're going to talk about some of our great Plymouth County history. So first, you're going to see some bar charts of our numbers for the month of May. There were 966 deeds recorded in May, more than the 733 recorded in April, down 1% from last May, the 980 deeds last month. So for the first 5 months of the calendar year, our numbers have been pretty stable. Mortgages are a little different story. So you're going to see a mortgage bar chart. Mortgages have been down over the last number of months. Basically, when the rates went up, people stopped refinancing. People still are using mortgages to purchase property, but not as many refinances going on record. There were 1,735 mortgages recorded in May, more than the 1,451 in April. However, down 7% to the 1,872 last year and down 6% for the first 5 months of the year. We always follow foreclosures quite closely. We had some very serious foreclosure problems a number of years ago. There were 48 foreclosure deeds in May, more than the 39 in April, 2% less than last May. And through the first 5 months of the year, foreclosure deeds across the county are down 18%. Foreclosure notice are also something we follow closely. A foreclosure notice is the first document we receive at the registry that shows that someone's in trouble. The bar chart of foreclosure notices show 85 foreclosure notices in May, slightly more than the 84 in April, 10% more than last May. However, 6% up over the last 5 months. Many lenders are getting caught up with homes who have been delinquent for some time, delayed by lawsuits, changing state laws and regulations. So if you're having trouble paying your mortgage, reach out as soon as you can to a federal housing counselor to help you possibly modify that loan. You're going to see a listing of foreclosure deeds and mortgages by community. Plymouth County has 27 communities from Abington to Whitman, and clearly Brockton, Plymouth, and Wareham have been the most beset. Our free training room is open to the public again on Thursday, July 12th. It's a 2-hour hands-on training course for how to efficiently search our website. Beware of deed scams. We have a free property fraud alert. If you want to sign up, anything that gets recorded against you, get an email. It's on our website. And I have a great guest in the next segment of the show. Again, Attorney Steve Triffletti of Triffletti and Costa, who will be discussing the role of a conveyancing attorney. So I'll see you in the next segment.
Last night at high school,
I tried Oxy at a couple of parties. I thought I had it under control. I didn't know it'd be this addictive. I didn't know how far I'd go to get more.
Opioid dependence can happen after just 5 days. Know the truth, spread the truth.
Welcome back to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. In this segment of the show, we always try to do something educational in nature. We've had commercial real estate brokers, we've had appraisers, we've had assessors, we've had everyone involved in the real estate market, particularly a lot of realtors. But the captains of the closing rooms are the attorneys that run the closing. And I have a very experienced, long-standing conveyancing attorney here today. They'd be certainly well recognized in this part of Plymouth County. Attorney Steve Triffletti. Welcome back, Steve.
Thanks, John.
Always good to see you. I know you've been a guest before,
Nice to be here again.
and you're all ready for the summer.
We are ready, yes.
Yeah. So why don't you tell our viewers, I know most of them would know you, but a little bit about yourself and then how you get into the real estate business.
Thanks, John. So I attended Boston College Law School right after college, and I graduated in 1976 and began my law practice in 1977. And since we're taping this in 2018, I've been practicing for 41 years. Wow. And our practice includes quite a bit of real estate conveyancing. We represent lenders and buyers and sellers, sometimes creditors. We do all types of things that relate to real estate conveyancing. So that would include not only doing closings and representing parties, we do housing court matters involving evictions, and we handle foreclosure matters, including foreclosure defense, probate, which impacts real estate closings, doing estate planning or probating estates. Even family law can affect real estate, a divorce where you're ordered to convey the property. So our practice is a general practice. We certainly concentrate in real estate in areas that are related to real estate.
So I'm going to ask you a couple times to share your contact information for the people watching the show.
So we're located in Plymouth at 124 Long Pond Road. We're actually at the same exit with the Registry of Deeds. And our phone number is 508-746-1464. And my email address is fst@plymouthlaw.com. And that's our website, plymouthlaw.com.
Right. So how has the real estate market been from your perspective for the first 5 or 6 months of 2018?
Well, it's steady. I wouldn't say that going back to the years of the refi booms when it was crazy,
right,
but it's certainly been steady. And again, because our practice is diversified, we not only have a fair amount of closing where we represent the lender, but a fair amount we represent sellers as well. We find that more and more. I think part of that may just be with a more mature practice. As I grow older, so do my clients, and many of them who have owned for years are selling and either downsizing or moving. I've had in the past few months quite a few clients selling and moving into assisted living. So we've seen quite a bit of cases where the conveyancing is a result of really a change in lifestyle.
I bet. That's a big change.
Yes.
A lot less space, a lot less obligation to maintain property and all that.
Well, and I think the demographics as people are living longer. I mean, the two women that come to mind in the past month, they're both in their 90s. One was my 4th grade Sunday school teacher,
wow,
and she's 95, and she decided after a rough winter with lots of snowstorms that it was time, although she loved living in her home where she's lived for so many years, that it was time to sell and consider assisted living. Another woman, very similar situation in her 90s, living alone and deciding. So a variety of things. I was dealing this morning with a matter arising out of a divorce where my client received the real estate out of the divorce, and now there's a foreclosure. So much of what we deal with in life can have an impact on the real estate, whether it's retiring and aging, whether it's a divorce, whether it's a new couple, first-time home buyer. The real estate is often very much a part of their legal needs.
Yeah, no question there's a lot of overlap.
Yes.
But for the purpose of this show, I'd really like you to talk about your role as a conveyancing attorney and the process that happens kind of internally, and what people watching the show may be approaching selling or buying their home would anticipate at a real estate closing. We certainly have a variety of ways to do them now, whether it be, at an attorney's office and it gets recorded by a courier, whether it be at the Registry of Deeds and they walk downstairs and record, and now a lot of high percentage of closings are over the internet, e-recording. We just added started to add land court to recordings over the internet.
So when people come to us, it matters as to the way in which they're participating in the transaction.
Right.
So this morning I was talking with a seller, and one of the first things we need to do is figure out who is the seller. In the case this morning, I got a call from the realtor yesterday telling me that I had formally done an estate plan for mom and dad, but it turns out they put the real estate in trust and made son a trustee. So in fact, it's the son, even though mom and dad are living in the property and they're selling it, it's the son
Right.
that has to be involved in terms of signing documents. And normally, when it's a seller, we like to look at the listing agreement before it's signed with a realtor, because we like to make a few changes to that. We then like to review the offer and the purchase and sale agreement before that's signed. Then we prepare the deed, be available to closing. But I think I'll concentrate on the usual situation where a conveying attorney is involved, and that would be when we're representing a bank and often the buyer or borrower as well. And in those cases, we offer as a courtesy, if we're doing the closing for the lender, we do a review of the purchase and sale agreement at no additional charge. And that's important because we want to make sure that the borrower buyer understands that the purchase and sale agreement is a legally binding contract. Now, prior to that, there's an offer, and many people don't realize that it's important what you put in the offer. This morning I reviewed an offer, and in this case I was looking at it for a seller, and it said, subject to buyer being satisfied with zoning on use for rental purposes. But the language was vague and it wasn't specific. I immediately got back to the realtor and said, well, is this going to expire at the end of the inspection period, which is normally 10 days? Because we don't want to wait until the day of closing and then have the buyer back out on the day of closing because they weren't satisfied with the zoning opinion. So in this case, the parties signed the offer before an attorney looked at it. Once I looked at it, I saw that there's a problem that needs to be
With
resolved.
some red flags, yeah.
And I'm sure we're going to resolve it. But my point in telling you this is people often rush to make an offer and sign an offer before they have a lawyer look at it. And an offer is also can be a binding contract. And it may affect what later goes in what we call the purchase and sale agreement. So very important for people, both sellers and buyers, to consult an attorney, because this was drafted by a realtor, and there were other things in the offer as well that could have been drafted a little bit differently when it comes to contingencies specific to this transaction. There are a lot of usual conditions, such as subject to a home inspection and certainly subject to mortgage financing. One of the things we always want to review with a borrower is to make sure they understand about the mortgage contingency. What does that really mean? Because sometimes people don't get the mortgage financing by the date that is called for in the purchase and sale agreement. So what do? Do you terminate? No, just because you don't have a commitment within 30 days, you usually try to extend it, because if you've got a good reason, the appraisal hasn't come back from the lender, but you've in good faith applied and you're pre-qualified, you normally would extend it. So we try to go over the contingency dates and timelines within the agreement to make sure that people understand.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you on all that. I will say that there's a lot of pressure on buyers now because of the level of inventory that's out there. They'll go to a house, there'll be 6 or 7 people, lined up for a view that day, and many times there'll be an offer over asking price, and I'm hearing from realtors that they're waiving some contingencies because they're so concerned about not getting a home they need.
I agree with you, but I would say from when you and I started practicing law, and we weren't using email and we weren't using texting or even cell phones, that the response time has dramatically changed.
You're changing now.
I know that for us, we provide our clients with the ability to contact us pretty much 24/7.
That's good.
So that in those cases, It's helpful if you're thinking of buying property to engage a lawyer, just as you're thinking of listing a property, engage the lawyer in advance before you have
That's a
the
good
offer.
suggestion, yeah.
And that way, you can call that person immediately and say, I want to make an offer and I want to make it now,
Yeah.
and can you help me out?
Yep. And they can send it back and forth.
Absolutely. They can take a screenshot. They
Realtors
can
are
send
incredible
it.
what the technology's changed for realtors.
Absolutely. And, you know, we're answering emails all the time, at night, on weekends, you know, whatever it takes in order to respond to this kind of environment.
So representing a lender and also the buyer with it, what is the first notification you would get that you're on a particular sale?
So what happens is the lender normally sends what we call a title order, wherein once the purchase sale has been signed, they order from the attorney a request to perform a title exam. And we usually look for a starting point at least 50 years back, and then we bring it forward, and we determine if there are any what we call liens or encumbrances of record. The typical thing might be a mortgage on the property.
And you do that traditionally with a title examiner?
We have a title attorney in our office, and so she is an attorney that's been practicing for decades, very experienced, and she does our title work. And so once we get her abstract back, then we look at the various issues and determine what we're going to clear up. She and I were talking about one this morning in which she found not only a first mortgage, but a second mortgage, and not one, but two tax liens.
Oh,
One, a joint tax lien, husband and wife, and then when they got divorced, one by the husband, but he no longer owns the property. So we would argue that that came after and is not going to affect the property.
and none of them were paid off?
And it doesn't appear that any were paid off.
Okay.
So, you know, these are things which then we're going to deal with that, and as the conveying attorney, we're going to receive the money from the buyer, but before we give any money to the seller,
Right.
we're going to make sure all the liens are paid off.
Right.
And people don't always understand. They think, oh, well, I'll come to the closing and I'll bring a check payable to seller. No, you don't do that. You make it payable to the escrow agent, whoever is closing, either for the lender, if it's a cash closing, whoever the attorney is, because that attorney has to then receive the funds and pay off all of the bills, if you will,
And you're
to creditors.
required to guarantee to the buyer that it's clean title.
We do that. We do that by way of a certification. We also issue title insurance, and it's our opinion, given our many years of practice and the experience we have, that people really shouldn't be buying real estate in Massachusetts unless they get an owner's title policy. And the reason is there are just so many reasons that there can be future title issues, even if we've done a diligent title search and paid off the liens. Years ago, the Indians filed suit in Plymouth, up in the Herring Pond area, and when they did, people who owned in that area couldn't refinance or sell their property unless they had title insurance. Many of us lived through the years of the foreclosure crisis,
Sure.
where there were a number of cases that came down after people had closed on property. And
Right.
so they thought the title was good.
Right.
Then case law changed.
Yeah.
We also had statutory law changing,
Yeah, afterwards.
rendering some titles to be later defective.
Right.
Again, if you have title insurance, it covered the problem. So
And then there were statutes that cleared up
yes,
those issues.
Right.
As long as a period of time had gone by.
yes. So it's our recommendation that you're required to get lender's title insurance if there's a lender involved, but you should always get the owner's title insurance, because it not only improves the marketability of the property, but when you go to sell it, if there's an issue that comes up, lots of times it may not be resolved prior to closing, but you can get what's called affirmative coverage to cover over that issue. It might be a missing discharge or release of a mortgage. It could be any number of issues.
So what documents do buyers and sellers typically see when they're at the closing table?
Well, certainly if there's a lender involved, probably the two most important documents would be the note, which is your contract to pay back the money to the bank within a specified amount of time at a certain rate. And then also the closing disclosure statement,
Right.
which sets forth what the costs are and what you're going to need to pay in order to purchase the property.
And that's in advance now?
Yes, the rules have changed, so you get your
Right.
closing disclosure statements in advance prior to closing. Other important documents would be a deed, a mortgage, and there are many other supporting documents for a closing, but those would be some of the important ones. You were talking earlier about the internet and e-recording, which we do, along with physically going to the registry. We had a closing last week that came out of a divorce, and wife was receiving the real estate. Her sister-in-law was joining with her on the mortgage. Sister-in-law's in New York City. She signed on Friday, and even though wife was getting her husband's interest, wife signs on Monday. Husband sends a deed to us to hold until Friday. We're recording this on Wednesday, at which time we'll record the deed and record the mortgage of two borrowers, one who signed in New York, one who signed
Sure.
in the Berkshires, where the property is located.
Right.
We're here in Plymouth, and we'll e-record property in Richmond, Mass., which is right outside of Pittsfield.
Yeah,
So, and then we're going to be wiring funds. So the point is, neither the two borrowers nor the seller are appearing at this virtual closing
change is coming, even more than that.
that we've done.
They're talking about remote notaries and doing it by Skype and all those things as changes are coming.
That would
you
be
know?
more, because in this case, a notary for the lender
Yeah.
went to the New York borrower's home. Our Massachusetts borrower in the Pittsfield area went to a bank.
Yeah,
We're in Plymouth. The husband went to another notary, and it all comes together.
I got a signal that, believe it or not, we've gone through our time. So I'd like to invite you back at some
Thank you,
point.
John.
And I think it would be great if we can get images of the documents
Sure.
that people are going to see and kind of go through them one by one. I think that'd be a good
Absolutely.
exercise. And so I appreciate you coming on. You're a wealth of knowledge, obviously, and having done this for a while, you know your stuff. And share your contact information one more time.
So it's Steve Triffletti at Triffletti and Costa.
Right.
Our local phone number is 508
Yeah.
746 1464. And you can reach us by email at fst@plymouthlaw.com. The website is plymouthlaw.com.
Great. Always good to see you.
Thanks, John.
Yeah. Welcome back to the Register's Report. Again, my name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. I want to thank Attorney Steve Triffletti for the great job he did in discussing the role of a conveyancing attorney. Clearly, when people go into a closing, in many cases, they're very nervous. Buying a home is, for most people, their most valuable asset. And it's nice to have someone at the closing table. Although they're representing the bank, they also help out the buyers at the same time. And we call them the captains of the closing room. And I know Steve Triffletti and his others like him do a great job at doing that. In this segment of the show, we always try to do something lighter in nature, some of the history of Plymouth County, the holidays in the month of June, a Flag Day, Father's Day, the summer solstice on the 21st. We're going to talk about a couple of our notable land record, members of our notable land record collection, in particular, the great lighthouses of Plymouth County. We're going to start with Situate Light. It is a very well-known lighthouse at the entrance to Situate Harbor. It has a lot of historical significance. Back in the War of 1812, when the British were coming and marauding and burning towns, There was a British frigate off the coast of Scituate looking to come into Scituate Harbor, and the ship was seen by the lighthouse keeper's daughters, Abigail and Rebecca Bates. They joined some of the townspeople, made a lot of noise, played the flute and drums, and basically scared away the British Navy from coming into Scituate Harbor. At the time, they were sacking villages up and down the coast, and they saved their town from great destruction. The legend of the Army of Two is something that's very much highlighted in Scituate Lighthouse, which is a great place to visit overlooking Scituate Harbor, is now owned by the town and operated by the Scituate Historical Society. And over the years, there are many people that say on a rainy night with the wind blowing, you can still hear the sounds of the fife and drum. The next lighthouse we're going to talk about is Plymouth Light, also known as Gurnet Light, and it is also historical in that it was the site of America's first female lighthouse keeper. It leads into Plymouth Harbor, again located on Gurnet Point, built after authorization by the legislature in 1768, was first a wooding dwelling of 2 lights, and built on the land of John and Hannah Thomas. John Thomas was the lighthouse keeper. He went off to fight in the Revolutionary War, was killed and did not come back. So Hannah Thomas was named the lighthouse keeper. During the Revolutionary War, the towns of Plymouth, Duxbury, and Kingston erected a fort on the Gurnet, and Hannah was named as lighthouse keeper by the United States government. It was bought by the United States government, but is presently cared for by Project Gurnet and Bug Light. And last but not least in our lighthouse collection today, there are others in Plymouth County. We'll talk about Minot's Ledge Light. Minot's Ledge Light was constructed in 1860, and it's off of the town of Scituate. The first lighthouse was washed away in a storm. It was rebuilt, and many shipwrecks had occurred off of Scituate based upon the inability to find their way through at night and in storms. And basically, the building of that light saved a lot of lives and a lot of ships. And it is well known because when the new flashing system came onto that lighthouse, the signal of it was a flashing that signaled, "I love you" in Morse code, hence the name Lover's Light. The light was built on a 25 rocky outcropping. It is currently owned by a private party, and just a great story of Plymouth County history. I want to thank David Antoine and Ben Alexander for their help with the show, Christine Richards and Lorna Green from my office helping me put this together. It's a great way to tell people what's happening in the real estate market. Again, for most people, their home is their most valuable asset, and we'll see you next month, but have a great and happy 4th of July. Thank you.